All right, so welcome back. Very special day today because of a package that arrived in the mail. So, some people like to collect cards, some people like to collect music, automobiles. People like collecting, right? And I think in the vinyl world, one, in my opinion, very overlooked gem of pop, and my favorite pop album, quite possibly the best electro pop album of all time, and one of the best pop records of the last 30 years is Siberia by Lights. So, I guess some backstory for this album. Hands down, my favorite album of hers. Um, but her other stuff is really solid. I try to um, keep in touch in a sense with all of the musicians that I've listened to when I was younger. You know, Bring Me the Horizon, Falling in Reverse, all of the very big into the emo phase of rock, the emo subculture and the post-hardcore, A Day to Remember, metalcore like the Parkway Drive, August Burns Red. I was very into just all the artists in that world, in that space, and Light stood out in the sense that she wasn't really like screaming or anything crazy in the vocals. It was just pop. It was it was very catchy. The melodies were very original, fresh. This album um, is really a masterpiece, honestly. This may have come out before the Haley Williams and B.O.B. collab, or if it didn't, kind of around the same time where even Lights was doing a collaboration with, I think, Shad, I think was his name. He's a rapper. And you just go back on the comments of people listening to that, and they're like, it was good until the rap came in. And then here we are 13 years later, and what's every singer doing on the radio now? You gotta throw in Drake. You gotta throw in Kendrick. It's not, you know, it's almost normal now that you need a rap feature on your song. Even Latin music. Becky G, or not Becky G, Carol G, and what's his name? I'm drawing a blank. Uh, Travis Travis Scott. You get the idea, right? Lights. 14 years ago, 13 years ago, already experimenting with that concept of fusing rap in your music, electronica in your music. Granted, I feel like some of the dubstep instrumentals in this record may not have aged amazingly. A lot of it still works, which I'm amazed by, because I feel like dubstep is phased out after the Skrillex era. Even Skrillex has kind of bounced away from the, pure dubstep. So there's a lot of dubstep influence, a lot of EDM, and collaborations with a group called Holy F. You know what F stands for. Um, and really just making some of the best work that I feel like she's ever created and that they've ever created. And I feel like the noise that has been made during this part of her career is just something magical. Honestly, you just don't hear music like this anymore. And there's even certain melodies. There was a melody from like one of the newer Taylor Swift songs, and it sounds like just like I think "And Counting." There's like one of the bridges or choruses in the song, and you listen to the new Taylor Swift song from the Tortured Poets thing, and it sounds. What I'm trying to say is that like people don't even realize that the influence that this album has on pop music so many years later, right? she's gone on interviews saying this album is like a second child to her. And I almost wonder why she hasn't, dived back into this sound. But that, I don't talk to her. I don't. You can only guess. So people just, they're finished with certain phases of music and they move on to the next thing. But um, I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. People were harsh on this album. People were low rating, mid rating. Um, you know, they were just kind of beating it up, unfortunately. And I feel like people definitely missed the ball as far as understanding the song matter. Were people expecting something more like obscure and esoteric where like only two people get it? It didn't have to have a ton of Easter eggs. There might be like a video game reference here or there. I think Skyrim on one of the songs. I'm not too sure, but. And then here's also where it manages to flip the script. Every pop album out there is about he left me, he dumped me, he's horrible. I feel like getting with your ex. All this, all this stuff, right? Just heartbroken artist after heartbroken artist. And then here's Lights, young 20s, meets the love of her life, which, spoiler, still married to the same person. And the album is kind of like a love letter to her now husband. And rather than what you might expect from this album of like, maybe it gives off the vibe of something depressing, but it manages to encapsulate someone's love for somebody using very new sounds, experimental sounds. And that's really what polarizes it from everything else. Everyone's talking about breakups, and then this album is a celebration of like having found your soulmate. And it's catchy, but it's also sad, kind of like how a lot of relationships are not perfect. People have their flaws. You know, the feeling of being far away from that special person in your life is captured in this song. The feeling of counting the days down, of making mistakes with your partner and not being honest. Like, so much emotion in this album, yet people have the nerve to just grade is so low. And if this really is the second child of the artist, can you imagine you put your heart and soul into it and people just slap a 2 out of 10, 3 out of 10? It's tacky, it's been done before. And then people wonder why she doesn't want to dip into this music again. But I feel like it's yet to the day will come where this album finally gets its roses. And sadly, it might be years from now, right? It might just be like a cult favorite. I don't know if it'll ever tap into mainstream, but I feel like if you know good music, if you like pop music, there are so many good songs in here. Um, you know, and Counting is beautiful. You could still sample that. Heavy Rope, Toes was a single, Siberia, the opening track. It just goes into like, how you would just go far and wide across the earth if it means to just be with your loved one, your soulmate, your partner, whatever. Um, I'm not super crazy about every single song, but I know a masterpiece when I see it. And maybe I'll die on this hill, but it really is one of the best pop albums of the last 20-30 years, like start to finish. If someone's listening for the first time, especially if you have like even the slightest taste for electronic music, you'll know a gem when you see it, right? and it's just so good. So let's see. I've tried looking around and understanding some of the song inspirations. I think Everybody Breaks a Glass is the collaboration with Shad, which sadly is not in the song credits back here. He didn't get a feature, but it's in the music video officially. You can see his name there. Peace Sign, I think, was about earthquakes in Toronto at the time, which the acoustic version also sounds great. She did the whole thing also in acoustic. It was called Siberia Acoustic. Much easier album to get your hands on, and it sounds pretty solid. I will admit though, I feel like the originals from this version are really good. Um, there are some where maybe the acoustic sounds a little more favorable for my taste. Like I prefer the original Siberia. I think maybe Toes Banner. The acoustics of those are good. Peace Sign, they're both very good, but I'd probably give a slight edge to this one because the acoustic version has like a French singer, which is still cool, but I don't know, it worked a little better here. But honestly, maybe this will just serve as like a personal document. It might go online. We'll see. I don't know if I'm gonna do it or not. But if it doesn't, as of now, this will just kind of serve as a reference piece. It's only worth like I think under 200. You could probably get your hands on it. But for this condition, it might be hard to find at that price point. Years from now, we'll see how much it really is. But I wanted to experience this and document it, and perhaps share it with others. But if you haven't, what are you waiting for? The album's free online. Go find it. Go listen to it. The CDs are like, you can get your hands on this for like $10 for a CD. And honestly, it makes for a beautiful piece of vinyl, just collectible, investable, because of the slight scarcity there still is for this. The only thing keeping this from going up, I feel like, is people's failure to recognize like the genius of this album. Again, maybe I'm dying on this hill alone, and people will humble me on it in comments, and they'll say, "Oh, it's not that good. You don't know what you're talking about." But honestly, I try to be sparing with these, but it gets a 10 out of 10. I feel like the nostalgia this brings, the memories of like back when I was younger, listening to this album, and even now, the replayability and kind of your ability to pick up on lyrics when you get older, it's still is just so freaking good. So don't know who's gonna watch this, but Lights, if you watch this, hopefully something similar comes out in the future. Otherwise, big fan. If you haven't listened to it, listen to it. Let me know what you think of the album. Do you agree with my praises? Would you not rate it as high? Is it more of a lower level for you? Curious to know what you think, but hands down, probably one of the best listens that I've had in a while.